Hi everybody, welcome back, and welcome to anybody that's joining my channel for the first time today. We're here today in the Lake Louise area on a little mini adventure this weekend. I've got some backpacking trips planned and I want to see whether I prefer a bivvy or a tent when it comes to those backpacking trips. So stay tuned to find out how the evening pans out. I'm going to be doing an overnighter, so I shall see you shortly. So I've now chosen my campsite, and what I'm going to be using is this GEERTOP Plume II one-man bivy. And the idea is this is going to be a practice run to see whether I prefer this or a tent on backpacking trips. So the next thing is to get everything out and get it set up. Very neatly packed here. So that's the pegs. These feel like the poles. And of course we have the actual bivy stroke fly sheet. So we've now unpacked everything. It comes in this lovely camouflage colour, as you can see, but hopefully you can still see these poles. We've got 3 sets of poles. These 2 are for the head area, and these ones are for around the feet, and then of course it comes with the pegs too. I'm going to be sleeping this way tonight. A little bit of a slope. I'm probably going to end up with a little headache in the morning, but that's okay. So let's get it together. So what I'm actually going to do first is peg out the square for the head area, and then I'm going to be putting the poles in. And the ground is pretty hard here. So next step, let's have a fight with these poles. So these poles, they'll fit into these eyes that you can probably see here. What you have to do is feed them through these sleeves, and then they'll cross over. And I'll just demonstrate that now. So we've just about managed to get the head area set up. I have to say that was quite a fight. It's not easy hooking up the eyes with the poles. It was hard work, not much fun, I'll be honest with you, and I was getting a little frustrated. So let's see how we get on with the foot pole. And as with the ones at the top, this one's got the little sleeve that the pole fits through. What we've done, we've pegged down the fly sheet, if you like, to try and hold it in place and make things a little easier. And as with the top, the ends go in these eyes. And hopefully this will be somewhat easier. One of the things you have to make sure of is that you do get the curve of the poles, because I do believe that was one of the problems at the top end. Okay, so I'm laughing because that foot pole was a little easier than the others, but it was still having a bit of a wrestle with me. It was quite stressful, but hey, we've got a bed for the night. So let's take a look inside. Okay, so obviously there's a zip here, and there's the Velcro that holds it down, which is pretty good because at least that keeps it secure and stops any rain coming through. And as with most of these kind of things, there is also the mosquito netting to keep all those bugs out on a summer evening when things are a bit damp or warm or anything. And yeah, this is pretty. I guess you could even sleep with this just shut if you were so inclined, so that you could sleep and look at the stars. So if we take a look inside, there's this strap across the top part, and the idea of that is to hold your sleeping mat in place so that you don't slide around in the night. Also got these little storage pockets here for putting bits and bobs in. I don't know, a set of keys or your phone, or I don't know, walkie-talkie, whatever. There's also this vent here. That's great for keeping the condensation out. And if we take a look at the foot end, you can also see that there's a vent down there as well. It certainly looks quite cosy in there. Let's see how me and my little boy Wilson get on here this evening. Now I'm going to be sleeping on the Ecotech insulated mat. We're expecting temperatures around the freezing mark tonight, and I just want to make sure that I'm nice and warm. Certainly looks to be plenty of space in there at the moment. So I'm going to be using the Trichology U-Loft pillow again. And I'm going to be using the Teton sleeping bag. It's a winter sleeping bag, so hopefully that'll keep me nice and warm this evening. Now, given this is just a one-man bivvy, there isn't quite enough room for my backpack to go in here. There is a little bit of a flap at the back here, so what I'm going to do is store that here overnight. We are in bear country, there's no food in my backpack, so I think it'll be okay. Well, it's starting to go dark now, the sun's starting to set, and I need to get some food inside of me, so I shall bring you back to this little bivvy again shortly. Well, I've now had something to eat and it is bedtime. I am here in the bivvy. It's definitely cosy, that's for sure. A little bit of a squeeze for me and Wilson. But I'm going to spend the night in here, see how things go, and I shall let you know in the morning. Night night all. Good morning everybody. Well, it's around about 7 AM. I had a great night in this bivvy. It was quite cosy. I was actually very warm. We did get a little bit of rain overnight, and some of that did come in through the vent around my head area. I'm not sure about my feet, but I'll check that shortly. But nothing too much. I think it's just probably from the breeze where it flapped in. I'm going to go and grab some breakfast, and then I'll come back and give a proper rundown of some of the pros and cons of this little piece of equipment. Okay, so I've now had my breakfast, so let's summarise the Geertop Bivy Tent Plume II. Now the bivvy itself weighs around about 2.5 pounds, which is comparable to a typical one-man tent that you might use for backpacking. Certainly when I was hiking yesterday, the weight didn't bother me along with my other gear, and it fitted nice and snug into my backpack. In terms of dimensions, it's 230 centimetres by 75 centimetres long and wide, and it's about 60 centimetres high. Now I'm 5'6" and I weigh just shy of 140 pounds, and in all honesty there was some space in there for me. It wasn't squished in, but when Wilson got in there with me, things did get a little snug. So how did my night's sleep go in there? Well, this is where I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to stick with this or whether I'm going to go back to a single man tent when I do go backpacking. The first thing to mention is the zip. No problems with the zip, pretty good quality, but it does have the mosquito netting and also the main zip, and because they are separate, you tend to have to undo the mosquito zip as well as the fly zip, which for me can feel a little bit claustrophobic, especially if you're getting up in the night for whatever reason, and I personally didn't like that. If you look at modern day tents, they tend to have them built in together, but in this instance they are separate. Now in terms of the fly sheet, it has a hydrostatic rating of 5,000 and the ground sheet is a 10,000 rating. The ground sheet was no problem at all. There was absolutely no moisture coming up from the ground whatsoever. However, it is waterproof, but there was some moisture inside. Whether this was leakage from the overnight rain that we had, or whether it was condensation, I'm not sure. But certainly my head area was wet or damp, and also my feet area was pretty damp too. The rest of me did stay dry. The other thing to mention is that if you do get up in the night, or if you wake up in the morning and it has been raining, as soon as you undo that zip, the flap that covers it, so it prevents water coming in, actually drips into your tent anyway, into the bivvy anyway, and you find that your sleeping bag gets a little bit damp. And that's simply from getting in and out of the bivvy. Now obviously the gear that you use will have an impact on how much space you have. I used quite a low profile sleeping mat. The sleeping bag was a winter sleeping bag, so it was a little bit thick and bulky compared to normal. Summer camping, obviously you'd probably use something that's a little more lightweight, and it would give you that extra room. If you're taking a backpack such as this is a 55 litre backpack, which does extend to 65. I would have trouble getting that in there, I think. And certainly when Wilson was in there with me, there wasn't quite as much room for manoeuvrability. So you might find that the bigger your rucksack, the more likely you're going to have to leave it hanging outside. So you need to make sure that you've got something to keep it dry overnight. Now when it comes to putting the bivvy up, there's no instructions here on the old tagger. So therefore, we had a little bit of a fight trying to figure out how to do it. The poles really were a struggle, especially around the head area. And even though those around the feet area were much easier, it was still hard work. And when you compare it to putting up a single man tent, I know which one I would prefer, and I think I'm going to stick with that tent. One of the other things to mention as well is that it did start to sag in the middle. Now this could be because we hadn't put the pegs in correctly, the ground's a little bit gravelly here and there's some rocks under there, or whether that's a design flaw. Again, I'm not entirely sure. It wasn't a problem, but obviously when it's raining or things like that, that moisture is going to be sagging inside on your sleeping bag, and it can get a little bit uncomfortable. So all in all, would I take this bivvy backpacking with me, and would I prefer it to take in a tent? The simple answer is no, I wouldn't. I'm going to stick with my one-man tent where I can fit all my gear in there with me. I can take my little dog with me, and I can lie there and sleep comfortably. Thanks again for joining us, folks. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, as it really does help out the channel. And of course, hit that like button and share away. Until next time, take care, and I shall see you all again very soon.